Welcome to Conversations in Higher Education, where collaboration meets innovation. I'm John Myer on behalf of Rackspace Technology here at EDUCAUSE in Nashville, and we're sitting down with leaders who are transforming higher education. Today's conversations is about what matters the most: building trust, empowering students, and creating the future of learning. Joining us today is Tricia. Tricia, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
Tricia, I'm going to kick things off. Is the top 10 initiatives for EDUCAUSE is about restoring trust. Why is that challenging today?
It's challenging because we have a culture now where people are not necessarily understanding the value of higher education. There's concerns about costs of tuition. I work at a community college, so we don't have as many problems with that. We're embedded in the community. We do a lot of workforce development, so it's a little bit different. But with all the conversation about do you really need a degree, should everyone get a degree, and concerns about AI and how that's impacting the value of the degree that you get, all of those are things that we have to address not only with the community, but also with our students.
You have to address is, will my job be there when I graduate? Will AI take over my job? Or can AI help my job? Those are challenging questions out there. With a community college, it's a little more ingrained locally, where the cost isn't as high as some of the traditional institutions. That's always one of the main topics on there. It's the cost, the value of my education. And you have to get on the same page, not only as the students, but the institution.
Correct. And we do a lot of work in our college too to ensure that transfer is seamless to other institutions, the four-year institutions, for our students who want to do that. But it's important that our students are learning AI technology because we know that employers are looking for that. But at the same time, we know that if you outsource all of your learning to AI, you haven't actually learned anything. So we have concerns on both sides, right? Faculty know in some cases that students aren't really absorbing I had a faculty member say, I get a beautiful paper. I ask them about their point and I get like the blank stare.
That's when I know they didn't, they used something to write this and they're not totally understanding the data.
Right. Or they're not able to articulate it. It's really hard to know.
Yep.
Is it that you can't articulate it, or is it that you outsourced it to ChatGPT? So that's why we're working on how we can embed AI learning into our curriculum. And a lot of this is a big culture shift for faculty too, who don't understand the tools, right?
Yep.
So as technologists, we have to bridge the gap and explain how it works. Because it isn't a magic black box, no matter what anybody says. It's not a magic black box. That data, that information, and how it's presented to you came from somewhere.
Yep.
But it is a big, I don't want to mull it over like, oh, we're just going to teach them ChatGPT and it'll be great. It's a lot.
You have to understand not only how to talk to it, but the data that's coming from it. Is the data valid? How to utilize the data? But then you're also on the same side as the faculty have to understand that's a culture, that's an education, that's a skill set change. Everybody's kind of learning it at different paces, but at the same time. Tricia, I'm going to jump over and say, what do you believe are some of the biggest challenges that leadership or CIOs in higher education are facing right now?
It's running a balance between trying to innovate, ensure that everybody has the services they need, and ensuring security and privacy. And it's right in the EDUCAUSE top 10. But because we're getting more and more sophisticated attacks all the time, right? And it's my responsibility to look after our faculty, staff, and students' privacy and security of their data. And so this is all intention, right? Because, we need the data because we want to use AI to, remove barriers for students. Okay, what data do we need, and what should we be looking at? What do we have to protect? Is there a way to anonymize things? Is there a way to really protect while we're examining? And that's just an emerging, growing.
That's an interesting perspective. Protect while we're learning and not using it. How do you protect or become transparent to the student and faculty with their data?
Well, it's all about involving them in the conversation. We're developing an AI strategy and governance council that comes from the entire college administration, faculty, and students. Um, they'll be intimately involved with how we're embedding it in the curriculum and how we're using it with data. And I've been attending a lot of different AI sessions while I'm here at EDUCAUSE. And one thing that really stood out to me is people that have done a lot of surveying of students are saying that they want transparency in how AI is being used and agency over how it's being used. And that's really intriguing to me. I was just saying to a colleague, well, we have to do this, and I think that's important, but how do we do it while we're embedding it in all these different administrative processes at the same time?
Can you describe some of the pain points that students are experiencing and how you're actually tackling some of those challenges?
Well, we deal with many first-time college students or the first person in their family to attend college. And we have a lot of immigrants, English language learners. So they may not know what American higher ed is. The language that we use, like, we don't officially use the term bursar. It's student accounts, but people will still say that. So we're trying to be simplistic about the language we use, but we're also implementing a one-stop.
Yep.
So students come in the front door, they go to the one-stop. They don't have to know admissions, enrollment, financial aid, accounts, and so forth. They just talk to the person who's knowledgeable, who's more of a generalist. And that's a whole education system in and of itself.
What are some of the biggest efficiency gaps in higher education that still needs innovation?
Well, we do a lot of things in silos for good reasons. It could be regulatory, like financial aid, for example. When you're dealing with federal financial aid, there's very specific regulations around it. So sometimes it could be like, well, we can just assume you're going to get this aid. But if I assume you're going to get this aid and then later I tell you you owe us thousands of dollars and you can't pay it, then what happens, right?
You just lost trust there at the same time.
Exactly. So it's looking at what checks and balances exist for a good reason, or we can't get around it because it's regulatory or legal, and what we don't need to do. And it's having those conversations on the campus about removing friction. And sometimes we might live in our own bubble. IT, we don't live in our own bubble because we have to deal with everyone. So we usually have a very good sense of how the whole community works. But it's getting these other folks together in a room and being like, well, students have to come to your office to physically do this thing. We could digitize that.
Nope.
Let's talk about how we can digitize it in a way that meets your needs.
It's reducing the friction.
Yes.
Not only the onboarding of a student, the scariness of coming to a college, whether it's community or a large-scale campus, you remove that friction of them understanding what they need to do. I think the one-stop is a great idea, is that they know or they get a little bit of basic understanding of all the steps they need to do. Because I think on the other end of the spectrum is that faculty and staff do this all day long. So they assume we know what needs to be done. And as a student, it's, oh, I didn't know that. And it's filling out more paperwork, or you didn't fill out all your paperwork, and understand that. And I think that really rebuilds the trust that the institution is really there for the students.
Right. Yeah, it's a whole onboarding process, right? That many times you have certain things down to a science, but then it just drops off.
Yep.
Like, well, then you go to IT. Oh, you claimed your identity, but it didn't work. Well, just go to IT,
Yep.
right? And so sometimes as technologists explaining what goes into it and why there might be a speed bump, so it's usually data related, oh, well, it looks like here you applied once 10 years ago, and maybe that's holding you up.
You're still in the system. We already have you. We need to clean it up. Unfortunately, when the systems merged, it didn't clean up, like fully unexplained. I apologize. But then also taking ownership of it, you as a person or staff trying to help them out through the process rather than passing off to another person, really helps build that relationship with the students.
Agreed. And the fewer times we can hand students back and forth, I'll hear it in my office. Like, student is there talking to one of our support analysts. Like, I think it's the third time I'm here. Usually they take care of this themselves. But if I come, I'll be like, let's figure it out.
Yep.
Let's dig into it. Come into my office. Let me see what I can find
You
out.
got to put yourself into their shoes, because an example is if you're calling or you're talking to a customer service person trying to resolve it, and you've had to call them 6, 7 times and to kind of go through it, you're like, why do I have to talk to every single department? Why can't I just get this done in one? Or you own it, you fix it for me, or whatever it is, and I don't have to keep calling back or coming back.
Right. And building those we try to build the relationships with our advisors. We have a program called Hudson Scholars, which is very in to say invasive, but in a good way.
Yep.
And we're scaling that to everyone. But that way that advisor can really like quarterback for the student and say, oh, I see. Wait, you were trying to do something with IT. Let me reach out to them and see if I can figure out what's going on. And I think that's really critical. And I think all of us who work in IT, like, if I see a student that's kind of wandering around in the hallway looking around, I'll say, are you looking for the IT department? Right? Okay, walk with me. That's where I'm going.
Welcome to it. That's like, Patricia, my last question for you is, how do you balance innovation with the process discipline needed for long-term support?
Well, we have to look at what might be needed to do the support in the first place and try to build that into how we're doing the implementation to try to eliminate the pain points before they show up. Now, of course, some of those pain points, I don't know what they are yet because I don't know how students are going to work with this system, or maybe we broaden the scope of how we're using it and have to adapt to that later. But I think a lot of the innovation is being willing to experiment and iterate on something. Like, okay, we did the initial implementation. Now we're running into this hurdle. How can we fix that? Instead of just being like, well, we'll just open a ticket and we'll fix it for you, right? There's always going to be new problems.
Yep.
Let's solve whatever problems we can systemically.
I like it. Tricia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for watching another conversation on higher education. I'm John Myer on behalf of Rackspace Technology. Until next time.